Okay, do we want to get
Yeah.
started now? Okay. Well, welcome. This is our fourth SAEM Next, as we're trying to look at how sports, arts, and entertainment organizations are looking at the current situation and how we're going to pivot and move forward. So I want to introduce our star-studded panelists that we have today, and I will let each one of them give their backgrounds. We'll start with Janis Burley.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Janis Burley Wilson. I'm the president of the August Wilson African American Cultural Center. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, did my undergraduate work at the University of Pittsburgh, then Duquesne for a master's, and then American University for postgraduate work. I've been in the role at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center for 3 years, September 1st, 2017. And prior to that, I worked at the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, and I was there for 15 years as the vice president of education and community engagement. And I created programs like the Gallery Crawl, the Pittsburgh International Jazz Festival, which we just did a virtual version of over the weekend, and that's celebrated the 10th anniversary of that program. The August Wilson Center, we have a lot of programs across genres, like we programs in music, dance, theater, obviously theater, but we also have a really strong visual arts program and launching new programs, obviously, as a result of the pandemic and having to keep our brand out there and without the ability to use the venue, the actual physical venue. So let's see, what else can I tell you? I live in Churchill and I have 2 college students in my house and a 13-year-old son.
Excellent. Okay. Caitlin.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Caitlin Green. I'm a senior consultant and client engagement officer at TRG Arts. We're a consulting firm that works primarily with nonprofit arts and cultural organizations. There are a few for-profits in there, in North America and the UK. I've been at TRG for about 3 years. Before that, I was a marketing and development director at a professional theater company and in a gallery before that. So arts and culture has always been in my career and in my life, and I'm excited to be here today to talk about where it's going.
Excellent. Okay, Rachel Winkler.
Hi guys, I'm Rachel. I am a SAEM alum, so super excited to be back with Point Park. So much love. I have been at Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts in New York for just over 5 years. I'm a senior manager of individual giving and development operations. So I wear a couple different hats: fundraising, events, donor relations, as well as the operations side. And for those of you who don't know Lincoln Center, it is the home of New York City Ballet, the Met Opera, the New York Philharmonic, Jazz at Lincoln Center, Juilliard, as well as multiple other organizations, and they kind of roll up under an umbrella under Link Inc., which is where I work. So super excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Excellent. Okay, Emily McCoy.
So I'm Emily McCoy. I'm the manager of donor relations for Pittsburgh Public Theater. We're the region's flagship producing theater company. So we create all our shows in-house, build all of our own sets, hire the actors, rehearse the shows, and put them up on stage. We too have had to pivot with the pandemic without being able to be in our theater. So that's creating new programs and new developments. I am also an SAEM alumni, so I'm super excited to be back with Point Park. So honored to be asked. I've been with the Public Theater for about 3 years, and prior to that, I worked for the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust. And I live on the north side of Pittsburgh, so still here.
Excellent. And I wanted to mention that we have the other SAEM faculty members on the Zoom as well: Paige Beal, Bob Durda, who's chair of our department, Kendra Ross, and the one and only Ed Traversari. And also our Dean, Steve Tanzili's on. And now I'd like to ask Zach Washington, who is our student co-moderator, to give us the Zoom rules.
Good morning. There are a few housekeeping notes. I would like to mention that everyone is muted and that you can ask your questions in the chat button, and the panelists will have the opportunity to answer your questions at the end of the segment. I would also like for you to know that this meeting is recorded and will be accessible on the SAEM Next page, which is at pointpark.edu/SAEM Next and via the SAEM YouTube channel. Lastly, I highly encourage every participant to use the chat button to ask your questions and add your comments during the entirety of the panel discussion.
Excellent. Okay, so moving forward, I guess let's start off with discussing how your organization or your clients are pivoting as we're going through COVID-19. And I'd like to start with Janis.
Hi, everybody. Obviously, this has been a shocker for everyone because everyone's so used to doing things the way that they've always done them with maybe slight variation, but this was really like everything. And it made us all realize what we don't know, where our strengths are and where our weaknesses are, I guess, within the organization as it relates to social media, online programming, being able to keep the brand going without the use of the actual building, the physical building. So it was really, it's been a challenge, but I'll say as far as the organization is concerned, we're very fortunate. We only have 13 full-time staff members, including myself, and we really needed everyone on staff to remain in place because there's still so much work to do. And so we didn't have to furlough anyone. We didn't have to lay anyone off or cut anyone's hours or anything like that. We are not obviously using our part-time staff that we have physically in the building as guest services or gallery docents. We don't have them there, but our full-time staff are still in place. We are obviously not in the building and aren't sure when we're going to go back because it's our top priority to make sure that our staff remain safe. And with so much new information coming out every single day, the challenge is to learn how to continue our programming, learn everything there is about a pandemic, learn everything that there is to know about preparing your venue for reopening, which is like taking a science course when you haven't taken a science course in 30 years, right? So it's been a big challenge. I am really proud of our staff. The majority of my staff is under 30 and a few right out of college. So we have some really young, dynamic, really smart people, but they are learning that things don't always go as you planned. So in light of in regards to the building, we aren't sure when we're going back. As far as our programming is concerned, obviously we utilize the building for everything. We have developed some virtual programs. We have virtual tours of our galleries that are on our website right now. We just had, as I was talking earlier before we all joined the call, we just had the first virtual jazz festival online this weekend, the first in the with new content. A lot of other people might be, a lot of other organizations might be bringing bringing old or archival footage back for people to view, to kind of keep the brand out there. This was the majority of the programming on our, for our jazz festival was new content. And it was on Saturday from 12 until about 6 o'clock. And for the most part, it went really, really well until the last hour or so. We had major technical difficulties. We were trying to have a Zoom dance party and the sound was terrible and we had to cut it short. But we estimate we had about 40,000 people that watched the jazz festival. So we are really kind of like surprised at ourselves.
That's amazing.
Yeah, surprised at how successful it was and getting a lot of attention. We also were able to do a little bit of fundraising during the festival. That's that's the large program that we've moved online. In addition to that, we've started some conversations, some discussions online around literature called Lit Fridays, which is a monthly program where we will invite writers, poets, visual artists, theater professionals to come on and talk about their work, talk about what they're doing during the pandemic, talk about what's happening in the world around us. And obviously, we all know what's happening in the world around us. We have a pandemic, and we also have racism on uppermost on people's minds. It's not like racism is new. Racism has always been here. So with our programming and our mission, we address that kind of thing all the time. We address disparities in the community, across communities. We address racism. We address social justice in our programming anyway. So we haven't had to stop and hurry up and come up with some programming that addresses social justice like a lot of other organizations have had to do. We work with artists that use that as sort of a theme or an inspiration for their work. So that has not been a difficulty for us. What has been, I guess, something that has been a challenge is with everything going on, a lot of organizations, and I'll say for our organization as well, we had knee-jerk reactions like, oh my gosh, we can't use the building. We have to hurry up and come up with something. We have to get online to remind people that we're here. And I listened to, I had a conversation with Michael Kaiser, who I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And he said, one of the things he said to me that I will never forget is never over-respond, right? And so that meant stop, pause, take your time, assess what resources you have available to you, and then plan. So we know that we need help as far as technology is concerned. And we need people that understand social media, that know how to quickly develop content and know what's out there, what's available in 2022 as opposed to what's available right now, what's on the horizon. And so we've taken our time, and the programming that we've developed has been very well received, substantive, and we're really pleased with it. So we're going to continue to take our time, not over-respond, and just plan programming that is still aligned with the mission. Like, for example, we aren't opening a food pantry. We aren't opening a childcare facility. That's not what we do. That's not our mission. And so that's really, I guess, the challenge is maintaining your mission and being very careful and very thoughtful in what you put out there, because there's so much out there right now.
Definitely. Excellent. Oh my gosh. Now how to follow that up. I guess, Caitlin, I'll let you.
Oh, good. Yeah. I haven't done anything for 40,000 people this week, so I'm not going to be able to
talk. Clients, so.
I thought I would just pull back for a minute and share a couple of data points with you, and then talk about the spectrum of response that we're seeing across some of our clients. What you should know before I even tell you these data points is they were outdated almost immediately after we released them. And it's not because we release lousy data, it's because things are changing so quickly in organizations' responses and decision-making here. The first was something that we first published in May alongside SMU Data Arts. We're a data-driven consultancy, so we're constantly gathering and collecting transactional data and supporting their work as well. And what we saw then in May, assuming that people could come back into venues by October, which I think we now know is likely not the case for most organizations, was an overall $6.8 billion net loss for arts and culture just in the US. So that was a projection of about 6 months of closure. As we go back into these figures in the next couple of months, there's no doubt that there's going to be some significant changes there. The second is a more recent study that just came out from us last week. It's outdated as well, and it's just last week, but there's still some interesting things in this. We looked at all of our current clients in the US, Canada, and the UK, and said, when are you coming back? Are you planning to do any real programming? And by real, we mean in-person or paid and online. So revenue generating programming in 2020. And 54% of our client base of about 100 full suite clients said, yes, we are coming back here in 2020 in some capacity. And the interesting bit in this, I think, for all of us is to look at the genres that had more confidence in coming back and those that had least confidence in coming back. Those that were most confident were multi-genre organizations or performing arts centers. In fact, 100% of our clients who fit that bill said, yeah, we're doing something before 2021. Dance was also quite confident that they were coming back. In part, this comes from big ballet companies' reliance on Nutcracker to support the rest of their seasons. So they were saying, yep, we're coming back. We got to do Nutcracker. There's no way we can do the rest of our programming without it. We need the support. The least confident group to come back were producing theater companies. So Emily, I'll be curious to hear your response here. But there are challenges there with unions, with the time and scale of bringing people together long enough to be able to do new work. So only 50% of the theater companies that we work with said, yes, we're confident we'll come back before them. So a few data points to ground you in some early things that we're seeing here in the field. But then there is this spectrum of response that goes on one side from mothballing, almost entirely. We're doing nothing, we are furloughing, laying off or making redundant a majority of our staff. We're seeing that particularly in the UK right now, where there are very few performing arts organizations planning anything before 2021. To the other side of this that says we're going full bore ahead. We are going to embrace social distancing. We're going to start incorporating live streaming or delayed streaming and on-demand access into our programs. And then there's this just litany gallery of options here in between. But what I would say across our client base, the conversations that we're having regularly are challenging ones about how do you fulfill your mission and maintain relationships outside of the business model that you've created. So that's, everyone's thinking about this. You're all in venues probably thinking about it now, but those are the conversations that we're having. How do we fulfill our mission? How do we serve our community? Truly thinking about how do we serve, not how do we get our community to support us, but how do we serve our community in these times? How do we maintain relationships? How do we build new relationships? Through all of this, we have some UK organizations that are doing radical, awesome work in massive pivots to say our goal here as a theater company is to connect people and serve our community. We are not a food bank, and yet we have transitioned entirely to delivering food to the people in our community because it's what they need. This is how we will continue to connect. So it's, while off mission in terms of producing work, on mission in terms of how they've always thought about their role in a place. So big pivots, small pivots, shuttering, and then really aggressive forward motion. I'll give you just one other example of someone really going for it right now, and that's Barrington Stage, who has performances running this summer where they are already selling tickets. You can go to their website and see their entire social distancing plan. And they were one of the first to come out and say, we're going. We are going, and we're going to make this work and experiment with this, but we're not giving up the live approach. So I don't know, there's some data points and an exploration of the spectrum here, but I'm sure we'll dig into details as we go further.
Excellent. Well, I think after that, we need to hear from Emily. I'm going to kind of skip over and talk to her next, and then we'll have Rachel speak. Thank you.
Sure. So we actually were able to pivot really quickly, and we launched a free online series called Playtime, which ran every Thursday and Friday. We have been doing works in the public domain. So we did a lot of Shakespeare, so Romeo and Juliet. We've also done Pittsburgh playwrights, like Tammy Ryan's The Wake. This week we're doing The Lion's Den, which will only be on Thursday, but we're really excited about that. And we've seen really great results from that program alone. These stats are a little bit out of date. They're a month or so old, but we have seen 11,000 people come through from 18 different countries. We've been taking surveys from people that are so excited because they haven't actually been able to come to physical theater in a long time due to transportation issues or not being able to drive at night, not being able to get rides. And so we've gotten a lot of really great feedback that these communities and these individuals that previously weren't able to connect with us now have theater delivered right to their living rooms in new virtual ways, which has been really exciting for us to see. so it's been great to work on that project. We actually launched fundraising specifically around that program, and part of it is donated back to our actors, a percentage from each week's donations, which has been also wonderful because that's been a big priority of ours, is to make sure that we're still being able to create paid opportunities for our artists. And additionally, we have a big gala coming up. So we pivoted. We were 2 weeks away from our in-person gala when everything got canceled and shut down. So that was a fun challenge to try and get deposits back and cancel things and get communications out, I'm sure as everyone had. But we elected to pivot to a virtual event. I basically feel like a TV producer right now, trying to create digital content and collect videos, and that is set for July 30th at 7 p.m. if anyone wants to join us. We also will have a silent auction, so we had to pivot. We typically have a raffle and a live auction, so we had to figure out what to do with some of these items, especially our big ticket items. So one of our biggest prizes is a Delta first class flight anywhere in Europe that we auction off, and that's obviously no longer available. And so, yeah, no one
What
wants
do you
to
do? Oh, no.
And so we have to figure out, how do we pivot? How do we take these items and create really interesting things virtually or social distance? We didn't know how many more restrictions would be in place. And so, because everything changes, all the time. So trying to find a happy medium there, in addition to, creating a really entertaining event and something that makes money. And I think that's kind of the challenge with a lot of virtual programming, is how do you create something really entertaining, but how do you also create a revenue stream from it to replace what you typically saw? And as Caitlin mentioned, producing theater is one of the most, I think, risky to come back. And that's something, we're facing with as well, as with our actors equity unions and looking at not just audience spaces, but our backstage spaces as well. And how many actors can we actually fit in a dressing room? What about our production staff? How do we maintain that distance? How do we make sure that everyone is safe? And that's something we're constantly looking at and exploring is, does it look like temperature checks and masks and measuring spaces on the floor and, sectioning off seats. And it's all very much up in the air right now for us. We're still looking at those decisions and what really ultimately is going to be the best for us.
Excellent. Okay. Rachel, how about Lincoln Center?
So our mission has very much been, our halls are closed, but we are open. We launched a platform immediately called Lincoln Center at Home. So if you go to the regular Lincoln Center website, it automatically redirects you. We are working with all of the constituents. So all of us are in one hub. So you can get the opera, the ballet, the philharmonic, jazz, all in one spot. And we have new content coming out every single day. A lot of it is from our archives. We've done stuff on PBS. The Met Opera has done live streams in the past. We've had ballets filmed. So we're reusing all of those videos and putting those on YouTube, on Facebook. In addition to that, we are doing pop-up classrooms every day at 2:00, which launches on Facebook. So we have our teaching artists from our education sector do little pop-up classrooms for kids. We also have concerts for kids. So our artists are filming new 20-minute videos that, kids will pay attention to for a short period of time to enjoy. On Sunday nights at 6:00, we have a new artist lead Memorial for Us All, which is a program with a lot of religious leaders to kind of give this arts and healing concert for those that have been lost during the pandemic. So that's been really positive. And we're just kind of, sharing as much content for free as possible. We are very much open, even though our halls aren't. As soon as we get the go ahead from the city, New York is very behind everybody, of course, but we will open the campus when safe to do so. And the Film Society is planning to stream videos in the park. They'll have circles set up kind of like the parks in Brooklyn. And so that's all being coordinated. And then we are planning to launch a free festival for all New Yorkers when this is over and it is safe to do so, so that we can thank all of the first responders. So lots going on. Similar to Emily, we did do a virtual gala back in May. We also created toolkits for a lot of smaller organizations to join us and follow. And we've been using Zoom for that platform. So it hasn't been a public gala. It has been a revenue generating experience, but we've had artists kind of pop into Zoom calls and give private performances from their living room. And our donors absolutely love that. So we're finding new ways. We're always exploring. We're always open to ideas. And, we're just trying to figure out our new normal and keep everybody connected, engaged, and enjoying the arts.
Very cool. Excellent. So I guess the next question that I'd like to address is, how are your organizations or your clients pivoting their business models? How are you changing your business model as things are changing, and where do you see your business model going in the future? Obviously, the core is the performing arts and you want to stay true to your mission, but how do you think through this your organization is morphing and that your business model may be changing somewhat? Caitlin, do you want to start off and talk about how your clients are pivoting and how they're changing their business models?
Yeah, sure. So I was having private chats actually with a couple of folks here where this is really related. So happy to bring that online for the group. I think what we're seeing in terms of business model, overall, there's just a huge reduction in budget size that I think will remain true for some time. And so in that, the way that we work is going to inevitably change. So there are these internal shifts that are happening that I think organizations are now planning for longer, for the implications of that to staff sizes, to resources, to how they produce theater. Are they really going to go back to doing $250,000 sets or not? We're also seeing, with almost all of my professional theater clients that I'm currently working with, they're all looking at being able to incorporate digital for the long. So they're looking at making investments now, both in staff and technology, to say, we've started this thing, we're in it, we gotta, if we're gonna do it, we gotta be in it. Let's invest, let's do this and see what this means for the long haul. So in short-term wins, what we've seen here is particularly with education programs, not little tiny teeny youth education programs, which really serve as summer camp, daycare, get them out of their parents' hair for a moment, but professional education programs for almost all of my clients are seeing more people attend than they ever did in person. And they're seeing more diversity in that attendance. Price points are lower. They're seeing people come from all over the country, all over the world, instead of within 15 miles of their company. So there's this access and reach that digital seems to be providing in the short term that now we want to start to plan for and capitalize on in the long term. It also lets us bring people in at different price points, if there is a price point. It lets us build an audience and begin listening to an audience that's bigger than just the one that comes through our doors. So our counsel here is really to think about the pivots that you're making now shouldn't totally be temporary. Are some temporary? Yes. Are you going to want to have hand sanitizing stations at every row in your theater in perpetuity? I don't know, probably not. But these business model shifts that say, how do we serve? Who do we serve? And how do we make that meaningful? This should be a part of a long-term conversation that organizations are engaging with to ensure relevancy. We've got this chance in this moment to, in fact, be more relevant than we ever have to communities that we serve and to our immediate communities that we don't serve. If we lean into this in good and smart and measurable, wise ways, the measurable bit is key here. We do have an opinion that if you pivot everything to free and online and you don't ask people to register, then you don't know who's coming. You can't ask them for feedback, you can't listen, and you can't talk to them. And so we do have this push that says, let's make sure we know who's attending, online or in person. That's always true, so that you can engage in these listening sort of conversations. So I would say that's the pivot. Those that are saying that in that business model, are we doing things now? It's about an expansion of distribution channels. The last thing I would say here is about partnerships. I just mentioned this in a chat, and Rachel, you're talking about this. Emily, I'm sure you're doing some of this as well. Everyone, Janis is doing it too. But where are partnerships allowing us to reach audiences in new, more effective, more directive, more engaged ways? You know, an example here is in New York, is the Public Theater partnering with WNYC because they can't do free Shakespeare in the park. The Delacorte is obviously not open right now. They're doing Richard II on air. So what does this mean to change your distribution channel and still be able to fulfill a mission role that you have? So we're seeing that kind of work, those partnerships really coming to fruition now, and I anticipate over the next few years.
Excellent. I know it's interesting seeing how those distribution channels are going to have to change. And as our Zach was talking about when we first came on, he's learning new skills and learning how to work video. And I think Emily and Rachel and Janis, we're all learning new skills. So, I mean, a few months ago, not many of us were really using Zoom on a regular basis, and now it's part of our daily lives. My family has gotten used to that. Okay, you got to be quiet. Mom's on Zoom now. So, Janis, how about you? How do you see your organization's business model shifting?
Caitlin brought up some excellent points as she was talking. I was nodding, thinking, yeah, we're doing that and we're doing that. We need help in these areas. But I guess I would start with, partnerships. In order to fulfill our mission of telling the stories of the African American experience and the African diaspora, we always have partnered with smaller organizations or independent artists. But now we've come together to have these kinds of Zoom meetings to figure out what are all of our resources and how can we leverage all of them together to make more of an impact. So that's happening more, which is definitely a bright side of this, of being forced to stay home and stop and figure out where you are and what your needs are as an organization. Also, for our organization, we have about a $6.8 million budget overall, and 17% of that is rental revenue. And obviously, that has been wiped out since March, right? And we're still getting a lot of calls from organizations that want to reschedule their events, or they want to move to our venue because of the style of the venue. We have a theater, we have large open areas where people can socially distance. So I see a lot of the types of events that were scheduled previously, where they were going to have maybe 2,000 people, those people have had to kind of wait until they can have their event somewhere else, or wait until the pandemic is over and they're able to come back to our venue. But it's also attracted other people that might have thought that they were going to have their presentation at their place in a room that accommodates 150 people, and they'd have 100 people in there. Now they're looking to us because they can spread out. So there are a lot of people trying to book space at our venue for the fall and into the winter. And we are working very hard to make sure that we're ready for people. So there have been a number of meetings in our region, and the public, Pittsburgh Public Theater has been a part of that. And I think these are just regional meetings where we're all trying to get some consensus across organizations on how we're going to provide instruction on how to social distance. What's the signage going to look like? So there's some consistency across venues, but we are really working hard because we want to be ready for those organizations that can come and rent and pay, because we want to get some of that try to recoup some of that earned revenue. As far as some of our programs, we have just, actually yesterday, was it yesterday or was it Monday? It was Monday. We have a summer writing camp that we typically do in the summer, and it's like a week long. Students are in the venue, they're moving about, they're interacting with one another. We obviously couldn't do that. So we had to move the program online. We moved it to a one-day program. When we started to advertise this program as a virtual event, we attracted people from all over the country. So we had students in California, we had students in Arizona, Chicago, logging in for this summer writing camp. We had so much response that we added 2 more sessions. So we see this obviously as a great opportunity. And so while we are putting free, and we made it free. So we put it, while we're putting it out there as a free event, we're definitely going to leverage that experience that these students had into a paid event. What that will look like, we aren't sure yet, because just as you said, Teresa, we're all learning this kind of like on the fly as we go, trying to figure this all out. But like I mentioned earlier with the Jazz Festival, with this summer writing camp and some of the other things that we're doing, we are thinking internally and also talking to some of our colleagues about how to transition those to paid events. And I saw in one of the comments about someone asked about, is there a fear? And the question is there a fear that audiences will get so used to being able to access performances online that they will not want to return to the venues? I think that people are dying to get out. As we've seen across the country, people are out in force and they don't have their masks on. They really want to get out. But I think that there is a concern with putting out too much and making everything free. And so we're all trying to figure out how are we going to transition that to some paid programming. And as Caitlin said, with some of these programs, you're able to provide different price points, which means that you are removing a lot of the barriers that would have made it impossible for people to attend. Some people can't afford a $60 ticket or a $125 ticket. So you have your $5 tickets and your $10 tickets. And with our galleries, the galleries are free for patrons to enter. So when we are able to open our doors in September for the gallery experience, we will do that. That will be free, but we will also have some experiences that are related to the gallery exhibitions that will be paid. So right now we're trying to figure out what that's going to look like.
Excellent. Okay, Rachel, do you want to talk about how do you think the business model of Lincoln Center is going to change, and how do you think that will change?
So our president is he just finished his first year. So he has really taken this time to take a step back and kind of look across our mission. So the first thing is making sure our mission is in place and that we are bringing the performing arts to the widest audience possible. And that has been Lincoln Center's mission since 1962. And so we've taken this we've kind of like pumped the brakes, continued providing all of our audience members with content and programming, but we've stopped and we are looking at how can we be a global presence. Lincoln Center is already a New York presence, in the US presence, now how can we be global? And so we're looking to be the leaders of the performing arts, and how can we help all of the smaller organizations under us to be the best that they can be. So we are looking at innovation. We are investing in our digital platforms. We are using this opportunity to connect with people that we would not be able to connect with, people who are not in New York, people who are in California, who are in Texas, who are in China, who are in India, and who are our donors. And we're using this to how can we take advantage of this situation and restructure how we connect with them. And so we are really using these digital platforms to kind of rethink how we do this. And it's definitely going to be something we do moving forward. Now, with that said, we have canceled all of our performances through the fall. Actually, I believe through the first week of February. And so we've also lost a lot of revenue in our venue sales. So we are scaling back. We have multiple budgets planned based on different scenarios. Because our fiscal year ends this month, June 30th. So we are planning for fiscal 21 to begin, and really just, you know, looking at how we can be innovative, digital, and connect with as many people as possible.
Excellent. Okay, and Emily, how do you see the public theater's business model changing?
Sure. So one thing we're actually looking at, especially specifically geared to playtime, is keeping that in play. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen a lot of success with people that can't get to theater, and that's an area and program that we're actually looking to expand. We're looking to partnering with rest homes specifically, and how we can actually create like a real program based on playtime and showing it on screens and what that looks like, which I think is an exciting opportunity. One of our leadership, Mariah and Lou's real vision for the theater is opening the doors wider to more of Pittsburgh. And so that definitely encompasses that. And that's something we want to focus on moving forward. You know, we've been speaking internally about the current racial justice issues and how we can better serve those. So it's a lot of looking internally right now and how we can make very specific choices and shifts to best serve our community, not just with in relation to COVID, but in this current moment, which I think is really important. And I'm really pleased at the work that we've been doing internally. And we've seen shifts in our fundraising too, and we're trying to evaluate, you know, whether that's a trend that's going to continue. I think right now about 10%, we're seeing about 10% of our current fundraising revenue is coming from ticket donations. So people donating their tickets back to the theater, which is really great, and we're excited to see that revenue. But, you know, how do we maintain that additional 10% that we got a bump from in the coming years, in the coming months, especially because our fiscal year end is in August, and so we have to restart all this again in September, and it's hard to, you know what that looks like. And we also launched a more grassroots style campaign with Playtime. And I think that's something that will likely continue in the future. We've seen really great success, and from a wider net of individuals to, you know, to kind of gain the $5 donation, the $25 donation, but that still is really able to make an impact for us being a smaller organization. And that's something that I think will continue in the future. And again, as Caitlin said, you know, figuring out how to correctly and appropriately monetize our online content and diversifying those revenue streams.
Most definitely. I guess one last question to the panelists before we open up for questions is any advice that you have for our students and our recent alumni out there on what they should be doing, because obviously, you know, sports, arts, and entertainment management is being immensely impacted by COVID-19 and everything else that's happening. And so what classes should students be taking? What new skills should they be learning to be able to help them pivot as they go to graduate and start their careers? And I'll open it up for anyone that wants to speak.
Well, I'll start by saying that the arts will come back anytime that there is a recession or a devastating tragedy. The arts bring so much joy, and everybody needs it for healing. So the arts will come back stronger and better than ever. So don't fear, there will be arts jobs. There's so many different sectors of the performing arts, as well as entertainment and sports, that it really depends on what you want to pursue. In the fundraising field where I'm in, there's going to be jobs because these organizations need to rely on philanthropy to get through these hard times. So that's really what I've been doing, is just connecting with donors. There's also marketing. You know, they're going to be, if you're in the marketing sector and that's what you're passionate about, I think somebody in the entertainment panel said there's a Google marketing certificate. So just take those certificates, continue using your skills, stay involved in the arts, you know, and everything's happening. And these jobs are going to come back. It's just going to take a little longer, but there's going to be more jobs. So social media, technology are what's going to come back first, as well as
Yep.
fundraising. Events will be further down the line, but there'll be jobs. Just get your foot in the door and you'll be able to work your way up.
Excellent. Anyone else? Oh, Janice, you're muted.
Sorry.
That's okay. I do that all the time.
I agree that the arts will always, people use the arts to respond to difficult times. So while that's a given, it's important to learn as much as you can, see what other organizations are doing, do your research. So you might not be learning all about, you're learning what you, how do I want to say this? You have what's happening in your classes, but also be aware of what's happening in the real world as well. Like we're talking about our different organizations. Tune into what's happening at Lincoln Center. Tune into what's happening at some of these other organizations so that you can see what they're doing and then think about how would you do it better, so that when someone does hire you, you come with ideas, you might not have the experience of working within those organizations, but you're familiar with what they're trying to do and how and what tools they're using to achieve their goals. So I think it's just really important to read the New York Times and keep up with everything that's happening in the world, really anything related to art, but just in the world in general. It's important to be as well-rounded as possible, because in the arts we draw upon our own experiences, we draw upon inspiration from our environment, and it's just really, really important to be current, I would say. And obviously, as much as you can about how to utilize social media to promote a brand and how to get programming out there, how to reach people. That's what I'm looking for right now. I mean, I need someone who really has that expertise right now. We don't have within our organization a dedicated IT person. We outsource it, right? So we are reliant upon an outside company for guidance on how to do some of these things we're trying to achieve. Having someone inside, every organization is thinking about that. If they don't have it now, they're thinking about who they need, and finding someone that has that kind of expertise as well as an arts background. We want you. We need you.
Definitely. Okay, Zach, do you want to try and take some of the questions now?
A lot of the questions were answered in the chat, but here are a couple that I thought were interesting.
Okay.
One of them is there a fear that audiences will get so used to being able to access performances online that they will not want to return to the venues?
No,
No,
not afraid.
not at
Here's
all.
why. The live experience just can't be replaced with
True.
something that happens online. Online, I think, will become this tangential or different entry point. I think online has the ability for us to extend the lifetime relationship that we have with patrons. So those who, on the older side, they're too old to travel, they're uncomfortable coming in, you get to extend that relationship. You get to bring families and younger people in earlier through these price points. I think it is totally complementary, and I think there's no way that online is going to damage the live experience or that patronage. I think this is all just icing on the cake here.
I think it's interesting because I think traditionally we've always feared that the digital would take away from the live experience. But I don't think, this is showing that it's not, and that there's room for both.
Yeah, and just to jump on that, I have a lot of older donors who their grandkids are helping them with Zoom, but that have not been able to leave their homes to attend performances. So this is another way that we can connect with them and continue to connect with them moving forward. But people are antsy. They want to be back in the halls. They want to see a live dance performance. They want to see a Broadway play. They want to see, the orchestra and the strings and the artist on the piano. It's not going to go away. And people are going to be, I'm already screened out. You can only watch so much content via Zoom or on YouTube or on TV. People will be excited to be back. It'll take a little bit longer till they feel safe, especially the older patrons, but digital will never replace live performing arts.
I think that it just gives us an opportunity to deepen the experience. So we'll have the live experience, but then there will be a way to extend it, to go deeper with a virtual experience, maybe pre-event or post-event. And I think also believe that most of us, as I think Caitlin mentioned, and I mentioned as well, we plan to continue to have a virtual presence. We've all talked about what we want to do online, but we were also focused on the physical, but all of our resources towards the actual physical event, and we just didn't have the time or the resources or the people to really develop that virtual content. So while this is a horrible situation, I mean, it's horrible, there was an opportunity for us to focus on that element of programming, and I think everybody is coming out of it thinking, wow, we can do this. I mean, we were shocked at the success of our festival, and shocked that we had students from around the country that were tuning into this summer writing camp. So we're going to use this summer writing camp as a way for young people to use writing to express how they're feeling about what's happening in the world around them. Because they're really, unless you have someone at home to talk about, or that has the capacity to really explore your ideas, or someone that has the time to talk to a young person, you're just kind of alone in your thoughts, or you're using social media and talking with your peers. But this is a way for people to kind of to learn how to express what they're feeling through literature, through writing, through art. And so we see this as an opportunity, and a lot of others are looking at it the same way.
I think what's scarier than digital cannibalizing the in-person audience, which you heard I'm not scared of at all, but what feels scarier to me that's facing our industry is a reluctance to adapt or innovate or change or challenge the status quo, experiment, fail, all of these things that are so inherent in an artistic process are often not a part of artistic administration and how we run organizations and businesses. And so that to me actually feels scarier for the fate of individual organizations that say, nope, we're just waiting until everything goes back to exactly as normal. And maybe they're right. Maybe it's all going to be fine, but I think not having innovation as an adaptation, as real skills as an organization is what will hold people back way more than digital will. I mean, that's what I put out there.
I would agree exactly with what Caitlin said. There's even a quote actually from one of the people that ran Ford Motor Company. Forgive me, I'm not entirely sure who said it, but if the rate of change on the outside is higher than the rate of change on the inside, then you're going to be negatively impacted. And I think that's really important to remember right now is that, yes, everything is changing outside, but we internally also have to adapt and make those changes. I've been very guilty of being really bad about change. And that's something that I think we've all had to really learn during this pandemic, and was something that we should carry forward, is being able to be adaptive and roll with the punches and make those hard, necessary changes.
Excellent. Zach, do we have another question?
What will on-site attendance look like when venues reopen?
Oh, I think it's going to be a lot lower depending on when you reopen. If you're not reopening till the fall of next year, it might all go back to normal. But I think if social distancing is still in place, obviously it's going to be lower because you can't seat to capacity anyway, unless you were already only using 20% of the capacity of your venue, then you're just spreading it out. But I think we can anticipate that in-person attendance is going to be lower initially and is going to then have an increase as things become safer, people get used to it again, jobs come back. I mean, there are a lot of factors here that are going to come into how audiences return. But I think assuming they're going to come back at the rate that they left us, well, I wouldn't cancel that. I wouldn't cancel that yet if you're planning to come back in the next 9 months.
There's actually a really great data source. Her name is, I'm going to have to double check her name so I don't mispronounce it.
Colleen Dillon Schneider. Is that
Yes,
where you're
Colleen.
going? Yeah.
Yep. And she has a lot of really fantastic data points. They're constantly updating their numbers and re-examining. And one of the questions they're specifically looking at is how soon are people going to be willing to come back to venues once they reopen? So that it's a very important question, and it's all based in stats. So that's something to definitely look at and look into.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment on that? Well, we are coming really close to the end of our time. So I guess if anyone wants to have any parting comments, you know, kind of a final wrap up of what you would like to put out there for everyone moving forward.
I think that, first of all, thank you so much for having us. And I've loved all of the SAEM Next. I've tried to attend as many as I can, and will continue to do so. They're so great. For the students, just, you know, keep looking for volunteer opportunities, internship opportunities, staying knowledgeable, reading up on the trends that are happening in each segment. They're all going to come back. Sports, arts, entertainment, everybody loves those fields. It brings joy and happiness to everybody. It's just going to take a little bit more time. Lincoln Center is, you know, adapting and changing and adding new content every day. So please log on. You know, we have it on demand, so you can look back at what we've done in the past or what's coming, and enjoy the arts. And, you know, we'll all be able to gather again soon. So I look forward to seeing you guys all on Point Park's campus.
Thank you. I've been taking advantage of a lot of Lincoln Center's material, so.
I would just say, and along in that same vein, you know, take advantage of all of this virtual opportunity that's out there right now. You know, in 1 week, you can see the National Theater, you can see Lincoln Theater, you can see a ballet company that you would never be able to afford tickets to. So I think take advantage of all those plentiful opportunities that are out there. And also, Janis, I think, mentioned it earlier, is view all of that and then see how you can improve upon it. I think that's, you know, one of the key things right now. And thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Pleasure
Hi,
having you.
I want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I've learned a lot as well, just listening to the other panelists. But my advice to everyone would be to be prepared. Just make sure that you are ready when those opportunities come about. And again, you know, watch as much as you can, learn as much as you can, critique, think about what you could add to an experience. Whenever we have events, we debrief and think about what did we do right, what did we do wrong, what do we want to do more of. And I encourage you to do the same, because you have young, fresh eyes, and you might not think you know a lot, but you really do, and you have a lot to offer. So I would suggest just see as much as possible, watch as much, think it through, and then try to create some of your own content as well. You know, just to practice. See you when all of this ends and our doors are open.
I can't wait. Well, thanks to everyone. I really appreciate all of our panelists and our SAEM professors coming online. We're at just past our 12 o'clock hour now, so this is the end of our formal program, but if there are any SAEM students or alumni that are on that would like to stay on and just chat with us, we would welcome you staying on so that we can you know, stay connected to our students and alumni. So thanks to everyone for participating. And next week we have, is Ed still on? Ed, do you want to talk real quickly about our SAEM Next that's on venues next week on July 1st?
Am I on? I think so now. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, next week's going to be venues, and we've got a really nice lineup. We're going to try to take it, you know, pretty much from amphitheaters, large concert venues, stadiums, and I've got probably general managers and operations directors to talk about really when it does come back, how are they dealing with it from sports teams to concert venues, like I say. So I think it'll be, one more of our ever going SAM Next versions to give a better experience on how all of it's working together. So hopefully if you're still on and you want to join us next week, we'll be here.
11 a.m. on July 1st, right?
Righto.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.